Go back to Leviticus chapter 23. Now you may be surprised saying, man, why would we turn back to Leviticus? But even the book of Leviticus actually teaches on end times Bible prophecy, whether you knew that or not. Now, Leviticus 23 is an interesting chapter. Leviticus 23 goes through the feasts of the Lord. And bear with me for a little bit here because I'm going to explain something. Remember, I want to explain to you why he told the church at Smyrna that they would have tribulation 10 days. Yes, I believe in a literal application there, but there's also a symbolic meaning with those 10 days. Now, in Leviticus 23, I'm going to explain why. The feasts of the Lord are laid out. You see, the children of Israel were commanded to celebrate certain feast days throughout the year. Now, these feast days can be pretty much grouped into the spring feasts and the fall feasts or the harvest feasts. So when you're looking at Leviticus chapter 23 there, you'll see some feasts taking place in the first month. Now, first of all, I want you to understand that, the calendar that the Hebrews used was a little different than our calendar today in the sense that we start our calendar in January, pretty much in the dead of winter. That's when we say that our year begins. Well, most calendars throughout history have started in the spring. You can notice even with our current calendar that the numbering of the months is a little off. For example, the month that we call October, when you see octo, what number do you think of when you see octo? 8, right? Like an octopus, okay? So, but is that the 8th month? No, it's the 10th month, isn't it? And then when you see November, that's similar to, for example, the Spanish word for 9, nueve, or diez is the Spanish word for 10, December, diez. Okay, why? Because December used to be the 10th month. November used to be the 9th month. October used to be the 8th month. Basically, our month of March is close to what used to be considered the first month. So the year used to start in the spring, okay, and that would be around March. So when we see in chapter 23, when he talks about these feasts in the first month, these are springtime feasts. And I'm going to skip through for sake of time. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the spring feasts, but we have, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the first fruits, okay? Then you number 50 days and you have what's called the Day of Pentecost or the Feast of Weeks. Then you have the fall feasts in the 7th month of the year. So basically the 7th month of the year would be similar to around the time of September, October, right? Because remember, we're a couple months off in our reckoning. So in the book of Leviticus, you have these 7 feast days. You got the 3 right at the beginning, which are Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. Then you have Pentecost, and then you have the fall feasts, which are the blowing of the trumpets is the first one, the Day of Atonement is the second one, and the Feast of Tabernacles is the next one. Now, you say, what's the significance? Well, here's what's interesting. Jesus Christ fulfilled all of the springtime feasts the first time he came to this world. Jesus Christ was the Passover, wasn't he? He was the Passover lamb, which taketh away the sin of the world. Jesus Christ also fulfilled the Feast of Unleavened Bread. He was the bread of life. He was the unleavened bread. He broke unleavened bread with his disciples. Then the Bible teaches that Jesus was the first fruits of the resurrection. So he fulfilled the Feast of the First Fruits by rising from the dead. And what's amazing is that he fulfilled these feasts exactly because he was literally killed on the 14th day of the first month. Study your Bible. And he literally rose again on the day that was the Feast of the First Fruits. So he fulfilled these feasts with his first coming. Then, of course, the Feast of Weeks, or the Day of Pentecost, was fulfilled on the Day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. Now, the fall feasts have not yet been fulfilled. The Bible teaches in Matthew 13, it says, the harvest is the end of the world. And it uses the symbolism of a harvest for the end of the world. So basically the fall feasts or the harvest feasts or the autumn feasts are going to be fulfilled at what the Bible calls the end of the world. Which the Bible, when it talks about Jesus Christ coming in the clouds with great power and glory in Matthew 24, the Bible refers to that as the end of the world. At the beginning of Matthew 24, Mark 13, etc. So Jesus Christ fulfilled all the spring feasts at his first coming. He's going to fulfill all the harvest feasts at his second coming or the end of the world. Now, how is he going to fulfill these feasts?